Good evening and welcome to Real Talk with me, Anele. Tonight, we're putting the spotlight on a killer spectrum autoimmune disease called lupus. According to the Lupus Foundation, it now affects more people than AIDS, sickle cell, anemia, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, and cystic fibrosis combined. And it has no cure. But first, late President Nelson Mandela once said every society will be judged according to the way it treats its children. And the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital in Johannesburg is maintaining this. Children must have the very best that we can give them. As we look forward and count down to what would have been Madima's 100th birthday this July, we're taking a look into the amazing beacon of hope that is the Visionary Hospital. A former student leader, my first guest, played a critical role in the June 16, 1976 uprisings. She was charged for sedition and imprisoned for 3 years at the Kroonstad prison in the Free State. And for her contribution, she was honored with the National Order of Lutuli. Over and above this, her biggest achievement is bringing to life Tata Madiba's dream. We welcome back to the show CEO of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund and Trust, Sibongile Mkhabela. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, I hear that my hospital is now a hospital. It's no longer a building. Because when we came onto the show, it was a building, a very pretty one, but there were no children yet.
Yes, and now they're children. So now our WhatsApp groups are about how is so-and-so doing this morning.
Yeah.
How are the children doing? How are the doctors doing? How are the nurses doing? It's a hospital.
It's a hospital.
And we see them come in and we see them leave. And that's, for us, is just receiving them and giving them the care that we promised and then letting them go home. It's been amazing. So it'll be an amazing journey. It's just starting. So we know it's going to be an incredibly hard journey, but it's a journey that we are ready for.
So you have basically lived a life of serving, right? How does one get formed that way? Because I also understand that your dad didn't approve of the fact that you were this person who wanted to be political and all of that. And here you sit with like a National Order of Lutuli Award. I mean, it's in your DNA.
Well, it's in the DNA in the sense that it's in the people who brought me up.
Yeah.
You see, growing up in those streets in Kulelezola, me. Yes.
Okay.
Kulelezola. You know, brought up by people who cared who we would become. My school principal at Naledi High School used to say, you know, Tina was Naledi Zolamdeni, so they used to call us the Wild West, right? And you would say, no, you're the jewel of the West. So I grew up seeing myself as the jewel of the West. And then I grew up with amazing leaders. You know, Omam Kuzwayo, the late Steve Biko. I've just have been very privileged to have been groomed by the best of leaders. So I owe it to them, I owe it to my community.
So when you were told that you're winning this national order,
oh my God.
Is it not, I mean, every citizen.
Oh my God,
once you've won, do you still pay tax when you win the award?
I don't pay the tax. Everybody does.
Oh man, okay.
You still pay your tax. You pay your taxes, you know.
All right.
You're probably first in line to pay your taxes.
Yeah.
You know.
Because now they know who you are.
They know who you are.
And where you live.
But you see, it's what it means. It's a country that Mandela envisioned that could pause and reward work that's done for children. Because that, we hope, will finally get South Africa to that place where children are safe, are happy, and can excel. Because the waste, you see, when you're not taking care of children, what you don't realize is the wastefulness of that. Mandela was not born Mandela, remember. Always remember Mandela as a young boy who went to school barefooted, wearing his father's pants. Now, when you think of that boy, rural boy, who grows up to be president, you have to be careful with every little Mandela that passes through your hands.
So do you sometimes feel the pressure as the CEO of the Nelson Mandela's Trust Fund, right, that you are literally an appendage of him, right? You're an extension of him because you are waking up every morning literally responsible for his most important dream?
You know, I don't feel that. I don't feel the pressure. I feel very strongly what he envisioned and what he left us with. You know, when he left us with, we are a rainbow nation. He was anticipating it. He wanted us to get there. He wasn't saying we're there. You know, people have sat around and said, where is the rainbow nation? It's not here unless you make it happen. And he said, it's in our hands to make it happen. So for me, he's left us. Well, we don't need to ask him to give us a sign. I think he's given us enough.
He's given us enough signs.
He's given us enough.
We now need to work with the signs.
We now need to just get on and create this world where we take care of the young. If we want to take care of the young, that's human capital. We're going to be the best country we can be.
So when, one takes on such a mammoth task, like building this hospital, the best of the best in the world. Like I said, when I walked around those passages, I was literally blown up at the detail, the foresight, the vision, but ultimately also the care. You could see that it wasn't built to make children feel like they're sick, but to make them feel like they're getting better.
Absolutely. We asked the children. You will not believe that from the design. When we're doing the design with the architects, the architect's brief, we had young people participating in briefing the architects. But when we're also designing the brand of the hospital, we went to Vegas School of Advertising, I think I told you, and we asked young people, we're building a children's hospital. What should it look like? What should it feel like? What should its brand be like? And this is what you see. When you look in the hospital, you see those beautiful wallpapers created in the Sishweshwe kind of designs.
The design, the prints.
All those designs are children's scribblings. So really children, how they think, how they feel. We said, and we've honored our promise, we will build a hospital that understands and embraces a 5-year-old. And it does. And it does. And they come home, they come to the hospital, they don't want to go home. They don't want to go anywhere.
Which is a very good problem.
They want to stay at this hospital. It's a good problem to have. But, we had to be true. And many times people said, well, you're talking about poor children. Shouldn't we really be looking at tuberculosis? Shouldn't we be looking at, basic primary health care? And you have to say, Mazondo's child, same way as Mandela, suffered so many diseases, including tuberculosis. Mazondo's child, Mazondo who lives in an informal settlement, could have a heart defect. And if we don't fix that heart, we lose a potential rugby player. You know what I mean? You have to think and think beyond what limits us. The problem in South Africa is we love the limitations. When you think about poor people, you want them to live in a little squat camp. That's where they belong. So everybody's got a little pack where they belong. And what we did is to break.
Is so much bigger than you, so don't,
We broke that. We broke that, which I think growing up where I grew up, I have no patience for limitations. I have absolutely no patience, because if we were allowed to be limited by where we come from, we would never have envisioned A. Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, but as young kids, we also envisioned a free education, a country where we matter.
So, because you are a heart person, and I get, you are all heart. Every now and then you're like, okay, girl, apply your head, and then you forget, and then the heart takes over.
I'm a heart person.
And you will get involved, and you will get attached, what kind of support are you having around you to make sure that you are this jolly, this happy every morning walking into the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital?
You can't help it, Anele, you've got to join us. This is a team of just amazing heart people. Even our cardiologists who deal with the little hearts, they are themselves heart people. The biggest debates we have is not how not to, is how to. The biggest challenge is, okay, if we can't do it that way, is there another way I can do it? So I feel like I'm in the company of my fellow crazies. At some point in life, you're crazy. And then you find yourself in the company of fellow crazy people who can envision a different world, who see it, who embrace it. So we have an amazing team. We've always had. For the 10 years, we had a 10-year journey envisioning this. And many people, thank God, who blocked our ears to all the negativity. All the negativity. He blocked our ears. It made us very naive. The naivety helped us cross very big lines that we now go back, and I'm like, how did we do that? How did we do that?
We'll continue to find out how you did that. And she's not lying about the fact that she works with a team of crazies. I've walked with her through this hospital. The high fives and the comments that are flying at each other, it's just something else. You want your children to get better in a place like this. The Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital sets the bar for modern child-centered healthcare and primary healthcare facilities in Africa, serving children not only in South Africa, but across the continent. Stay tuned for more on this after the break. And welcome back. Thank you for watching. The project started 12 years ago with Tata Nelson Mandela's dream of building a state-of-the-art hospital for children. It took 7 years to do the research, of training and finding the necessary skilled doctors. Today, the Center of Excellence boasts 17 dialysis machines and 7 imaging units that can treat up to 2,500 patients a month, from neurology through to heart and psychiatric conditions, housing 200 beds to provide life-saving treatment. How much work was involved in this mammoth project? I'm in studio with the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund and Trust, Mamsibongile Mkhabela. What gave you sleepless nights about this project? Feel like, how long do you have?
Wow, it's how long do you have? It's whether people would think institutionally, they would think connections and networks. Because what really makes this hospital is the number of partners who come together.
True.
We've got 3 universities. We sit on a platform with 3 universities: Johannesburg, Pretoria, Sefako Makgatho.
Yes.
Now we've got 3 deans. And now those who work in the academia will tell you what you're working with already, just having that complexity right there.
Okay.
But then we need it for us to honor what we said about training, about care, and about research, which is what we intend to deliver. It gave me sleepless night. The biggest sleepless night is whether our government will embrace a civil society-driven initiative.
Oh.
And we are thankful for the leadership of Minister Motsoaledi. I do not think without him we could have delivered this. Yeah. It needed someone with foresight. It needed a visionary. It needed someone who didn't think the next 5 years of my term. It needed someone who thought about
the next 100 years.
The next 100 years. Of health.
Of children's health.
Precisely, because you have to think like that. You had to think like that to envision this. And we had that in Motsoaledi.
And he actually said the most strange thing, and he was like, you know, this Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, it's a strange animal, really, because it doesn't belong to the private sector. No. It doesn't belong to the public sector.
Exactly.
It's just a communal effort of excellence.
It's where we dared to dream. Dared to dream. You know, we have nothing to lose. If we didn't do the Children's Hospital, we would have continued with our business as usual, and at some point God would have called and we would have died, and so on. And so life goes on. But we dared, and we dared in defense of our children, ensuring that at the very least we secure that future. So that gave me sleepless night, is whether government and government leaders will see and embrace. And then what kept us awake is whether we would raise the 1 billion rand. Amen. I can't count a billion.
You guys were obviously playing the lotto every week.
We had to play the lotto every week. 1 billion rand, and we looked at it from all angles. Yeah. We had to do this, and we did.
But amazing thing because of the goodwill, you know, that comes around, you know, that Nelson Mandela's name, people think it's easy to raise 1 billion. No. Please put that notion to rest right now.
No, just I must take away anyone who thinks because you have Mandela's name, it's easy. Yeah. It is extremely difficult because people think you already have money. Yeah. What they forget is that when Mr. Mandela started the Children's Fund, he gave away 1/3 of his salary, of his income. Yeah. Now, this is a man walking straight out of prison,
becoming president.
27 years later, his first job, he gives away 1/3 of his income.
First, he thinks he gets paid too much. Remember, he was like, you guys pay me too much.
He thinks he gets paid too much, so he gives it away.
Yeah.
So he gives it away. And that's what starts the Children's Fund. So that's what I treasure the most. That's the one gift that I hold very dear, is the fact that it's a man's money and it's not It's not a philanthropist with a lot of money. It's a man with nothing who gave away the little that he had. But then when we go out there and we say, because the name is known so much, no one is really going to look at the books and say, how much money is there? The reality is, Mr. Mandela was not that wealthy. Didn't have that much money. And the people who came around and who supported him, many of them did not quite give to charity. A few did, but many of them didn't give to charity. So the challenge it left us is dealing with the perception that we've got lots of money. When actually you didn't have, you know, because I grew up in townships, it's like, you know, in our homes, your mother says, dress well when you go out there and people think you've got money.
Like, wow, they're balling. Meanwhile, back at
and
the
your
ranch.
mom tells you, drink your water and your bread, no one will know. Right? So you look like you've got it, but you don't. And the Children's Hospital, Children's Fund, Children's Hospital, the Mandela organizations, we don't have the money. We have the name and the big brand. And internationally, I think people have over the years learned that. They've learned that Martin Luther King didn't have money, he had a big dream. But when you come out and you say Martin Luther King, they're thinking you've got money. It didn't translate to us.
Also Martin Luther's suits were so good, you would think that he had money. I don't
you
believe
would
people
think you see, if I get a fantastic designer, right in Alexander, you would think, my goodness, this man's got money. No.
So, you know, it's, to get the billion, you build it, it's there. But you also need operational costs. And I was having a quiet, secret conversation with somebody else about, you know, the hospital, because they were asking, is there a way that we could, you know, throw a big festival, a 3-day affair to raise money for the operational costs? Is
Can they do that?
Look, it was just a conversation that we were having.
Well, it's conversations that give you, you know, we can talk here or outside of here.
Okay, so to wrap up my conversation with you, is this where we are now, that we now need to start raising money so we can continue to serve the children of South Africa in this high-tech, you know, best in the world hospital?
Let's think of ourselves as the best.
Okay.
Right? Once we do, then we realize we've got a huge assignment to ensure that what government gives is that which keeps us alive. But we want to thrive. We want to be kept more than alive. We want to contribute to healthcare, to research. We want to lead our own research in this continent. So if we keep that dream alive, then we know that to sustain this hospital, we've got to start now raising enough money. Even for the operations right now, we need more money. And we also need more hands on deck. So those people, especially in the media, PR space, we're not good at those things. We need those of you who can write, who can put things together, who can put word out there, more hands on deck. So we're here. We didn't build it alone. It's with all of you. We can't do it going forward on our own. We need all the skills, all hands on deck. So Mandela Day, don't know what to do. Give your time.
Okay. That is a perfect way to wrap it up. Sibongile Mkhabela's leadership, passion, and her love for children has seen her help take the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund beyond a charity for feeding the poor to fulfilling a much, much bigger vision. A special thank you for her for being on the show again and for continuing to do such wonderful work. After the break, the ins, the outs of the hospital with the CEO, Dr. Mandisa Maolwana.
You basically are witnessing us transferring a baby out. This baby is a premature baby that was born at 30 weeks and was referred to us with difficulty in breathing. So, as you know, our hospital is more of a referral hospital. So most of the surrounding hospitals, when they do not have ICU beds or babies need specialized care, they send them to us. So he came here, he's been here for a week. He was on the ventilator, being assisted by the machine to breathe, and we've taken the baby out of the machine 2 days ago. So, and monitored after that. So now we're happy that the baby is stable. So as you see, the paramedics are here. The transport is ready. They are happy to take the child back to Natal Sprite Hospital.
And welcome back. You tune into Real Talk with me, Anele. So getting the best care for your child's health is every parent's concern. It was Tata Mandela's biggest wish to build a children's hospital as his lasting legacy for future generations. The Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital in Johannesburg officially opened its doors to the public in 2016. 12 years after the first brick was laid, the first patient was there. Take a look at this.
He was getting puff on the face. Then we didn't know exactly what was going on. We took him to the private doctor. Then the private doctor was suspecting that it's an allergy, but wasn't sure of it. Then he refers us to the hospital, where they asked us to run all the tests that they can run so that they can see exactly what's going on with him. So then they ran the test. Then after that, it's where they discovered that he's got a problem with the kidneys. The kidneys are not functioning. He was in Zimbabwe at that time, so he went to Mpilo Hospital. Then they said it's like in Mpilo Hospital, they are only got the doctors that they are dealing with the old people. They don't have one for the child. So they say there is also another hospital that they can transfer him to. So they did transfer him to Pararenyata Hospital. So then it's where he went there, then it's where he was started dialyzing there. I think he almost done 5 sessions because they were suspecting that the kidneys, they're gonna wake up. But they discovered it's not. So that's why they've transferred him to Johannesburg Hospital. He wasn't expecting that he's gonna be chosen to be a first patient here. So then I accompanied him the first day when he was coming here. He was really happy about it. And I've seen it's like so far he has changed the way he's doing his things.
We welcome to the show a woman who has the responsibility of running this hospital, Dr. Mandisa Maolana. Well, thank you for your time. You know, we want to know everything about this hospital. First things first, I hear the word referral a lot. So I want to understand, how do you find it that your child is then admitted to the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital?
Thank you so much, Anele, for having me. So yes, the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital is a referral hospital, yes, primarily because it's a tertiary quaternary hospital, whoa, which means that we deal with highly specialized services. Okay. So we're not treating your asthma, diarrhea, those kinds of conditions. So of necessity, the child needs then to be referred to the hospital by a specialist. So it's a specialist to specialist actually transfer, whether it's from another hospital or from a specialist rooms. So we cater for all children, but like I said, it's a tertiary quaternary service, then which looks at specific services. So we don't have the full array of services, we've got specialized services.
I feel I must stress, and Mama Sibongile also touched on this, but you know, I want you to give it to me in your words, because you know, people who are less fortunate, these diseases that are so rare and, you know, that need the most specialized of doctors around the world. You know, if you live in a shack and your child gets the disease, it's almost a death sentence. It's like you can't afford to treat it. So am I right in saying the memo, the vision for this hospital is that every child on South African soil, it doesn't matter. If that disease that is rare and you need a specialist from Boston, that's what the hospital is about, making sure that they stand at least a chance.
Absolutely, Anele. We know that Tata Madiba loved children. Yes. I mean, everyone knows that about him, and he just adored children. He wanted the best for them. And this was one of his founding ethos, to say that no child would be turned away from that hospital. And really that is our mandate and our mission, to ensure that wherever the child comes from, despite of their socio-economic circumstances, they're able to get the type of care that they need. And I mean, to date, looking at the type of children that we've treated, all of them to date have been from the public sector. And we've been able to give those children the best of care at the hospital. And you know, because we understand that people come from very different circumstances. I mean, this is the first hospital in the continent, actually, to have family accommodation within the hospital itself.
So your family can stay over?
The family can stay over. There are criteria, though, Anele. I don't want to cause chaos at the hospital tomorrow.
We like bring out 2 plate stoves there.
Absolutely. There are criteria, because we understand that some parents may coming from far, you know, so we would want to work within the guidelines that we have in the hospital. But this is a very special setup that is family and child friendly. We want to treat the child with the family involved in the care and the management of the child.
I remember walking into one of the operating rooms, and this machine looked like it was ready to take off, you know, go to Mars, stop off at Jupiter, go around Pluto, you know, go to the moon and make its way back to the hospital. This is how high-end it looked. And what fascinated me is that there were screens where you could be talking to doctors around the world who are then all consulting in on this procedure. I want to know more about these facilities that can be found at the hospital.
So, Anele, our theatres are equipped with the best machines, high end, in fact, top end. You know, it doesn't get better than that. Yeah, and we are networked. I think our aim is to be the most digital hospital, I'd say, in the continent, so that we can actually network with any other hospital in the continent or anywhere internationally. So we've got telemedicine capability. We're actually currently connected to one of our international partners in Canada, SABC International Hospital, and we've got capability to connect with anyone really around the world, so that we can teach people, because we, as we heard Sisbongi, we're part of the academic platform in Gauteng, and for the benefit of everyone in South Africa, want to be able to teach, but also want to be able to learn from expertise that we don't have in South Africa, where people based in the US, Canada, Australia, anywhere in the world can actually connect to us and show us some of those procedures that we need to do.
I did touch a little bit earlier on the psychiatric, you know, side of things, but do we have people there to talk to the mind of the children so that they can understand, you know, the sickness, the illness that they have and what's going on? And, you know, the world doesn't hate you, you know, this is just something you have and this is why you are in a hospital like this, so that we can heal you.
We run what you call a multidisciplinary team. So it's not just the high-end specialized doctor who speak, you know, language that mothers and children cannot understand. We've got social workers, like you said, we've got psychologists, we've got dietitians, we've got physiotherapists, occupational therapists. So we've got a full team that actually, when we do ward rounds at the hospital, it's a big group of people, because everyone has got an input into the management of the patient. Everyone's got a different perspective, and we want different people to be able to communicate with the parents, with the families, to understand the circumstances, but also to educate the family. We did say we've got a family and child-centered approach in our care. So you want to engage the family, make sure that they understand the child's condition, make sure that when they go back home, because you bring children out into this highly specialized environment, and then they have to go home back to a shack, you know. So you need to make sure that when they go back home, you saw the video on the renal patient, you want to make sure that the diet can be accommodated at home. They need to be able to eat properly. So it's a multidisciplinary team. We want to make sure that we give the best to the children that we attend to. So there's a lot of aftercare
thrown into it as well.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize that. And, you know, in wanting to make sure that it's a hospital that's top end and healing, and it can touch base with any place in the world. What I do like as well is the fact that you still make the children feel like children. Please, can you brag about the radio? There's a radio station for the kids to broadcast to the hospital, to the other kids. You know, that spoke to my heart, you know, as a radio DJ, that spoke to my heart. Tell us about that.
I love that place. I love that place. So I'm working on my own playlist. I've been told I'm banned for the studio. It's for children, by children. So I'm like, no, I'm sure you can give the CEO a 5 minutes slot once a month. Exactly. It's like, I'll pay people Bryson. They don't want to hear people Bryson, yes. So as part of the healing in the hospital, but also, you know, understanding that children are hyperactive, you know, they're active beings, you know, as soon as you let them be for 2 minutes, they don't know what to do with themselves, you know. So we do run structured programs. We've had iPads donated to make sure that they can continue to learn. We've loaded apps for them to be able to do homework. So the radio station is just one of the elements that we have to ensure that we're giving the best care to the children. It's run by an international NGO, Radio Lollipop. And what we would do in between, you know, like when the nurses change shifts and, you know, children are bored, they're running around screaming, you know, that we've got volunteers who will come and take them up to the radio station. And, you know, depending who's the DJ of the day, you know, DJ Anele, DJ Z, or whomever, you know. So give them that opportunity. But it also goes beyond just playing music. You know, we want to be able pre-record stories for the children in all the languages, you know. So, you know, if you're a child lying there, you come from Venda, you come from the Eastern Cape, you come from the Northwest, you know, you can listen to a story in a familiar language, you know, and look at things like that. So it's all part of the healing. This is what we call holistic therapy.
I was about to say, the word for it is holistic. Dr. Maulana, thank you so much for your work. Continue to carry on. We applaud you. This hospital is indeed the embodiment of the visionary that was the late President Nelson Mandela. This year, he would have been 100 years old. So leading up to July, we'll have more of the Mandela centenary celebrations. On the other side of this, a very important health issue, a chronic autoimmune disease that basically attacks your organs as if they were foreign. It is systematic lupus, here's this word, erythematosus, also known as SLE, or just lupus. We'll talk about, okay, that was funny, but it's not a laughing matter. We'll talk about it after the break. So imagine if one day your body decided to turn on itself. Instead of keeping you healthy and fighting against infections, it started attacking healthy cells and organs for no clear reason. Lupus is a silent killer, still highly misdiagnosed by many doctors until it's too late because its symptoms look like many other illnesses. In the last few years, international celebs like Toni Braxton, Selena Gomez, Nick Cannon, Seal, Michael Jackson, Snoop Dogg's daughter as well, have spoken out about the illness, which can become debilitating. Aching joints, chronic fatigue, butterfly-shaped facial rash, hair loss, mouth ulcers, organ damage are just some of the many symptoms. My guest now has been living with lupus for almost 10 years, and at some point in her career had to take a disability retirement. Sibongile Komani, founder and patron of the Lupus Foundation in South Africa, is here to share her story. Welcome, Sibongile.
Thank you for having me.
Can I call you Smosh? Don't joke. That's for your friends. I'm just joking. Listen, and I'm pretty sure you get this a lot. You don't look like you're suffering from anything, but apparently that is why lupus is called the silent killer, that you don't know that you're sick.
If I could bring a few women that have lupus, or even men that have lupus, you look at them, you look at Toni Braxton, we all look like we're very healthy.
Yeah, but what is happening?
Your body is killing itself, basically. So, you know, in a normal person, not that we are not normal, the immune system, when you get a virus, the immune system acts up and fights that virus. But a person that has lupus, the immune system doesn't stop fighting. It continues to attack other organs that it mistakes for a virus.
Also, it means well.
It means well.
Okay.
But then it doesn't differentiate between a bad cell and a good cell.
Okay. So when you were diagnosed 10 years ago, what were you feeling?
I didn't know when I went to the doctor. I had chest pains, and I always had migraines and joint pains. But when I went to the doctor, I had gone because I had chest pain. And I had gone to 2 doctors before that, GPs, who told me that I'm depressed, and they put me on antibiotics, on antidepressants. And I was on antidepressants for about 3 months, and I gained a lot of weight. And I thought, well, I'm struggling to go up the stairs, I'm struggling to sleep, I'm struggling to do this and that. Maybe it's because I've gained weight. But then eventually I decided to go and see a cardiologist. And she's the one who diagnosed me, because when I got there, she was shocked because I was rushed to ICU because I didn't even have a pulse. I had pulmonary embolus, which are clots in the lungs. That is what killed Vuyombuli. So I had the same thing that Vuyo had, but I was very lucky that I took action at that time.
When you go to a doctor who's now looking for it, is it easy to see?
It's still not, who's looking for it?
Yeah, so if someone is like, I suspect you may have this, and then they're actively looking for that.
It is, yes. Unfortunately, most doctors are not that they don't know about lupus, but they are not tuned to think of it. They think of HIV, they can think of cancer and all the other things that are out there. And most lupus patients die before they can even, or just after they get the diagnosis.
Yeah. Do you have a family history of lupus?
There's actually 2 of us in my family that have lupus. My cousin has the the one that is with the skin, it's called discoid lupus.
Yes.
And I have the systemic one.
So what does yours do? Is it the one that attacks the cells?
Even with her, a person that it can start as the lupus rash,
yes, and
then it continues to affect some other parts of your body. Other people have bruises on their thighs, on their bodies, and it just doesn't discriminate. It just goes for everyone.
Even ages, ne?
Different ages. And what I found interesting in South Africa is that since I started the Lupus Foundation of South Africa, there's more young people that are diagnosed with lupus. So that for me is exciting because there's other smaller foundations that are being created. Because, you know, when I started the foundation, I didn't think it would grow this much to this level and being able now to have patients being diagnosed by some doctors that are in the social media platforms.
So you used to work in the financial services.
Yes.
And then you had to take
disability. I was actually forced to take disability leave because I spent the first year of my experience with lupus was very difficult. I would be at work today, and tomorrow morning I would wake up in ICU.
Wow.
So it was very difficult for my employer to really keep me. It's painful when you're told not go home and die, but because of the situation that I was in, I had to just accept that.
Okay, but then you didn't go home and die. You went home and you started...
I'm still alive. I went home and
Thank you for not going home to die.
I decided I'm not going to let any other person lose their job because they're diagnosed with a disease that no one else knows about.
Yes.
Most of the time I meet people that only the family members know, and other people have been misdiagnosed and they've died, or other people will call me. Like even today, I got a WhatsApp this afternoon. Someone said we would like to do something on the 10th of May because it's World Lupus Day.
Yes.
And as a family, how can we participate?
Yeah.
So, but then the member of the family passed away last year, July. So there's a lot of people that pass on and it's not talked about.
So now you left your job or you were pushed out. How do you earn a living?
I'm lucky I have a husband and I get my insurance money. Okay. But then I then started a hair salon in Pretoria because I thought the best way to meet people is at the salon. They come, they are relaxed, and you can talk to them.
And they talk about their ailments, this is so, and then that's when
that's where I started the foundation, yes.
Okay, and what does your foundation do?
This year, the main reason was to create awareness about lupus. Okay. But then this year we've decided that as we have now created so much awareness in the country, we have other smaller lupus foundations being formed, which is very exciting for us because we are the national force in creating the awareness in South Africa. So we're encouraging the other foundations, the smaller units that are there, to register any patient that has lupus, to register with us. Reason being, Anele, there are no statistics in South Africa of how many people are living with lupus, how many people are diagnosed, how many people have passed on because of lupus. Yeah.
So what medication?
For this year, sorry about that. For this year, we are trying to get as many people registering on our website. It's the www.lupusfoundation.co.za. And the more statistics we get, maybe we can get support from government because we've been trying to communicate with them and we're not getting any response, so that we can get the number of people that are living with lupus in South Africa. And there's a lot of them. Yeah.
So what medication are you on currently? Do you have to take something daily?
I take about 8 pills a day for me to be able to come and sit here.
So what are they doing? Do they tell the fighting cells to calm down?
They say, just hold on, we're going to Anele's show, so take it easy. You know, most of us, there's no one medical medicine or one pill or like a cancer cell that you can go for whatever. With lupus, having lupus means a lot of different things. So everyone that has lupus takes a different cocktail of medication.
So this is why you need to be specialized so they can find out what do you have.
Exactly. Okay. So on our website, we've made it even easier for doctors now. that a person, when they register, it will categorize them that this one has fatigue, they have chronic headaches, they got malarash. With all the symptoms, the patients will click there so that the statistics are very precise as to what is happening.
Okay, speaking of doctors, let's pull a doctor in here. Sibongile Komati runs a foundation which brings together doctors, nurses, and all interested parties can come together to find solutions to treat and manage the disease. Next week, Thursday, the 10th of May, is World Lupus Day. Her foundation is hosting a golf day. Please go out in your numbers to show support for this initiative. After the break, more of the anatomy of lupus, and we've got our doctor here who's also going to be fielding some questions. Stay with us. And welcome back. So there are a lot of scary autoimmune diseases that are not easy to diagnose, and one of them is SLE, also known as lupus, a nightmare for the medical industry. According to stats, over 90% of women aged between 15 and 45 are prone to the disease. Despite the severity, most people don't know much about lupus, even though millions of people around the world live with it every day. He is no stranger to the show. Dr. Funle Nyati is here to help us understand this disorder. A pleasure to have you back. As soon as people heard you were here, Dr. Nyati, the voice notes came in. I think they're trying to avoid the 800 rand that they must pay to see you. Immediately, we've got a voice note. Can we please roll it so the doctor can answer?
Can they help you at the public hospitals if you've got that disease? Because I think I've got the same symptoms. Sometimes I've got a chest pain and I've got bruises, but they checked the blood and they said I don't have clots and the chest was clear. Every time I went, they can't find nothing. So I want to find out if in public hospital do they do that.
Okay, doctor.
Well, I think the answer is a big yes. You know, most of the diagnosis is by understanding the history of the patient. You know, what is it that the person is presenting with, okay? And you build on that history by examining as a doctor to look for clues like that butterfly rash, you know, and there may be other skin lesions that are visible on the outside. But all of that still doesn't tell you anything. And then blood tests can be done, and most, you know, even, you know, polyclinics will be able to do some of these blood tests. One that is specially used is called ANA. It's you know, it's a certain, you know, antibody that is normally associated with autoimmune diseases. On its own, it doesn't necessarily diagnose the illness. However, you know, that together with the rest of the information from the medical history, from examination, gives, you know, clues to this thing. But it's a very difficult, you know, condition to diagnose because the presentation can mimic so many other, you know, conditions. So public hospitals, definitely, if there are competent doctors in those, you know, facilities, there's no reason why people, in fact, actually in the country, we've got the best hospitals that are in the public sector, you know, pockets of excellence, like, you know, so people must not think that the private sector is the place where everything is happening. We actually, the backbone of our health system is the public sector.
So now you touched on something here, and I'm going to pull you in, Sibongile. What's the danger in being misdiagnosed? Because if I'm taking the wrong pills, I'm literally frying my body at a stage, right?
Yes. Well, obviously, again, it depends on which organ is affected. You know, for example, one of the most serious, you know, complications of, you know, of lupus is kidney damage. You know, which at some point can even take you to chronic renal failure, where the kidneys, they just shut up.
You're not.
All right.
Did you suffer from anything like this?
No, I had
it's one of those, or it could be the lungs, you know, where the lungs can just shut up, you know, where there's bleeding inside the lungs, or there could be what we call pleurisy, the covering of the lungs, that causes a lot of pain. We have difficulty in breathing. So it depends on which organ is affected. So the delay in actually making the diagnosis, it could be a situation like hers, where she had pulmonary embolism, where now it was affecting the blood and making the blood to be thicker and clotting, and that clot moved, you know, into the heart, to go and almost stop her lungs from functioning. That, if not dealt with, as an emergency, can actually kill. Yeah. So it depends on the, on the organ that is affected. But, doctors need to have a high index of suspicion. But the problem we have, though, is that we don't have much time with our patients, because if you just pushing the queue, you will miss some of these diagnoses from the symptoms, from the history, and people get diagnosed very late, and by the time they get diagnosed, some of them would have died.
I want to go to a voice note, but quickly to you, Sibongile, do you now have a doctor, one doctor who sees you, knows you, and knows how to look at...
I'm treated by 3 doctors.
But they're the same team.
Yeah, yes. And luckily, my doctors also work at Steve Biko.
Yeah. I
also have a relationship with another doctor, the foundation, not me, at Baragwanath Hospital, at Charlotte Matlaike. Yeah. There's lupus clinics, but they're very small and they're not out there. There's no funding for them.
And what's the cost of treatment?
Well, again, it differs. It depends on what is the main issue. I mean, like the guys who've got kidney problems, when now the kidneys are shut up, they have to go for dialysis twice or 3 times a week. And the cost of that, especially if you don't have a medical aid, because there's limited facilities within our public health system. So those with medical aid, they are able to go there. But sometimes even to get into the disease management program, to be accepted, there can be very difficult, and there could be a lot of co-payments. So that is one area. If it affects the heart, or even the lungs, like in her situation, again, to have that pulmonologist, or cardiothoracic surgeon who gets involved, or that cardiologist to get involved, it's very, very costly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, listen, this has been an eye-opening and mind-blowing, getting to grips with this chronic and life-threatening illness. This Saturday, the 5th of May, if you're in Mafikeng in the Northwest, show love and go dressed in purple to support and hear from Lolo and other amazing survivors who live with lupus. Like you were saying earlier, Sibongile, it's nice that a lot of foundations, a lot of groups, a lot of NGOs are popping up so that we are sharing, connecting and talking about lupus. Thank you to all my guests, Sibongile Komati, Dr. Nyati, Sibongile Mkabela, as well as Dr. Maolwana of the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital for coming today and having a nice, nice little health episode that we had here. From us at Stain City, we're back again on your screens tomorrow when we'll pay tribute to the 5 young lives lost in the tragic car accident that happened last weekend. One of them, of course, one of our SABC 3 family, Akumzi Jezile. From myself and the rest of the team, good night.